in the next few couple of months, and we hope that all of you can tune in as and when they happen. Friday night conversations are hosted by us at Compartment S4. We are a design collaborative of 8 architects, and we decided to have these conversations on realizing the strong gaps between the world of academics and practice. So it has been great so far, since we have been able to rope in practitioners, researchers from different places to talk about the topics that we align with and we feel requires a sort of collective analysis. So for today, we have with us Eshani and Hardi. They're going to talk to us about their final year project on the Gurgaon district's urbanization and its impacts on surface water bodies. They've carried out a study of 15 village ponds in Gurgaon, and they use different analytic lenses to look at this water body and its effects around the context. So Eshani here, she's an architect, and she's currently working as a project associate with the Wing Foundation. She's interested in learning through field experiences, and her work has a sensitive approach towards analyzing water issues through a systems perspective. Hardi, on the other hand, she's an environmental engineer, and she's currently working as a scientific officer at Meta Analytics. She has a strong hold on technical aspects of water management while also being sensitive to the community acceptance of technological solutions. So now, Harji and Ashani, I'll ask you to present your screen, and you can start the presentation. So everyone else, I'll request you to just keep your videos off through the presentation, and as soon as the presentation is over, I'll ask everyone to switch on their videos so that we can have a discussion. Yeah, Ishani, you can take over now.
Thank you, Vedanti, and thank you, Compartment S4, for hosting today's Friday night conversation and inviting us. We are happy to share our work through this platform. My screen is visible, right?
Yes, Ashani, it's visible.
Okay. So today, Hardi and I, as Vedanti said, we're talking about our major thesis work in our master's program. And so this work involved, we were a group of 4 students who visited the 15 ponds in Gurgaon district, and we collected different data sets. For example, we analyzed water and soil quality samples. We tested them in our college lab. We measured the lake dimensions, pond dimensions. We did a little bit of survey, got a qualitative sense of the situation of the water bodies. So as a group, we did this entire exercise. And later on, we kind of individually had our own separate project objectives, which was based on the same data set. And today, Hardi and I will present our individual projects. And so I'll just talk a little bit about what my project was. So it involved viewing all these 15 ponds together as like an entire system. And to do that, I tried to develop a toolkit. And so this toolkit is called City Rehydrate. And I will illustrate how I used this toolkit in the context of the 15 ponds in Gurgaon. And Hardi can talk briefly about her project.
And so thank you for the opportunity. And I have focused on this project on one particular pond and studied its water quality parameters and designed a localized solution, which is a nature-based. And one of our colleagues have studied the lakes through ecological hydrological perspective and developed a framework And another colleague have used GIS tool to understand the rainfall runoff model of the district.
Yeah. So this is the locational context of the study area. This is Haryana. And to the south of the state, there is Gurgaon district. So this is the district, and it shares its border with Delhi. So Delhi, the south side of Delhi shares its border with Gurgaon. And these are the 15 villages that we visited during our study. Most of them had natural ponds. I just like to mention an off-track point, which I find a little bit interesting. So to the north of Gurgaon, there flows a drain, which is actually a river that originates in Rajasthan, and it flows through this area. This river is called Sahibi River. And by the time it comes to this area, it becomes Nazafgarh drain. So a river becomes a drain. Drains are usually considered as carriers of wastewater, which is true in this case. But generally, drains are important in our watershed systems, in our river basin systems, because they are the carriers of excess surface water. But in this case, the urban Gurgaon center from here contributes to wastewater in that drain. And then the drain kind of goes to Delhi and carries Delhi's wastewater and meets Yamuna. So we know about the pollution and the status of Yamuna, and you can kind of put in context how Gurgaon and Delhi are in that sense related to contribute to the pollution of Yamuna. So talking about the water bodies that we studied, at the time of our visit, this is what we found. The major source of water in these water bodies was, of course, rainfall and runoff from surrounding areas. But in addition to that, even grey water, which was untreated from the village, was discharged in 13 out of the 15 ponds. And that has resulted in degradation of water quality, eutrophication. It impacts the aquatic life in the ponds. There is urbanization, which is unplanned and haphazard, and that has led to encroachment. And that has also impacted the natural flow that comes to the pond. In the fourth image, you can see a tanker discharging black water, which is untreated, directly into the pond. So this was what we saw and observed in these water bodies. Given this context, I'll talk about City Rehydrate, which is the toolkit I developed. I intend it to be used for analysis of urban water issues, and also try to kind of even suggest interventions through the process of using this toolkit. And I will show you how I used it in the context of this study area. One element that I tried to put in this toolkit was flexibility, because in my experience, there are certain frameworks and manuals that have been created, which are a sort of to-do list, like a checklist or a set of steps. And those are very directive or indicative, but and they serve the purpose of they serve the particular purpose, but sometimes it becomes restrictive because it does not get applied in all contexts. So that's why I wanted to have an element of flexibility, so that any user can use it in their own project sites, and they can interpret the toolkit in their context. So this is how it looks like. There is a central circle, which is the people circle, which has 3 parts: stakeholder, knowledge, and stake. There is the middle circle, which is the place circle. which has 3 parts again: natural resources, association, and sustainability. I will talk about what these mean in the context of Gurgaon. So all these 6 elements in people and place are called elements. So in the outermost circle, which is the viewing lens of part and whole, so these are the elements. And if relationships between one-to-one relationships between each of these elements have to be seen, so that would be relationship. And the third part is whole and beyond. So if an entire holistic picture has to be seen, that would be the whole and beyond part. And in use, this is how the toolkit will look like. So the central circle, you can see it is moving. So that also for me was like an element of play. The user can take the toolkit, explore it, try it out, move the circle around, and kind of link these different blue and green elements with each other. Also, this toolkit is not intended to be like a set of questions, and each question has to be answered in a definitive way. But each element can be taken, explored, and so it's an explorative process, and there is no definitive how to use a toolkit kind of guideline. I'll now talk about what was my process of using City Rehydrate. So after a couple of visits, when I used the toolkit, I kind of made like a brainstorming map for me. And using the toolkit, it gave me intuitive relationships and patterns that I could see emerging between the different elements. But I could also see there were certain gaps or information that I didn't know about. And so I could go back and kind of inquire into that. And then I did like a completeness check to see whatever I have on that brainstorming map, is that inclusive of most of the important elements or not. And then I tried to see how these elements interact with each other and what is the entire whole picture that is formed, and how these elements interact, what kind of relationship, what is the weightage of these relationships that they have with each other. So in the context of Gurgaon, this is a kind of initial list that I came up with for each of those 6 elements. So for example, in natural resources, agriculture and farming was practiced in a lot of the villages, in most of the villages. Pond, of course, what we were studying was the natural resource. Domesticated animals depending on the ponds was an aspect. The local topography, rainfall, groundwater, all of that fell into the natural resources list. Association, in the sense that since grey water was being discharged, there was a neglect. There was an absence of association of the people with the pond. Several times we see a temple pond being maintained well because of a presence of temple, but that was not the case in this, in our study area. Sustainability, I was just trying to note down what could be the models of the intervention, in the sense, how will the intervention sustain economically, or what will be the management model of that intervention? So that I kind of noted down. In the people part, in the knowledge part, the tools that we as a group used were listed down. Stakeholders were the people who were residing just near the lake, the ponds, the governing bodies at the district level, at the village level, the panchayats, the villagers, farmers. Because of urbanization, there were a lot of migrant population who's being attracted to these urban locations. And so what was at stake? A major stake for the nearby residents was their health and clean environment. They complained about malaria, foul smell coming from the pond. There was a threat of groundwater contamination and so on. So this was the first part of my use of toolkit. And the there were a lot of points in the list that I showed above, and which I then kind of compressed and used categories to form a set of 13 defined subsystems. So the first is, of course, the water quality index. Second is the ponds, water sources, degree of association, groundwater. Some of these things I kind of talked about in the above explanation. Urbanization, agriculture. Some of the farms experienced waterlogging because of the drains that were carrying wastewater near them. Soil quality, health, local hydrology, social organization, social structure within the village. Real estate development is a huge market in that area. Local governance and livelihood. So these were the 13 subsystems that I defined. And then I did a completeness check. I did a completeness check for these 13 defined subsystems. So, so this is an adopted matrix from Wester's model. So the first row kind of lists different elements, and we kind of need to check if our defined subsystems are related to these elements. And we give a score of 0, 0.5, and 1. So for example, for water quality index, it is impacted by the village population which discharge the grey water into the ponds. So it is given a score of 0.5. But the water quality index has nothing to do with space utilization, so a score of 0. And natural balance is affected by water quality balance, so it is given a score of 1. And similarly, the exercise is continued for all the subsystems. Just the thing to note for this is, if any of the elements mentioned above kind of have a total score of 0, then we might have to relook at our set of subsystems. For example, if I had a score of 0 in economy, then I might have to relook and add a 14th or 15th subsystem which was related to economy. So this kind of does the completeness check of the set of subsystems that we define. And then we try to see the relationship between the defined subsystems. So this is done by an influence matrix. So both on the column and the row, we write the 13 subsystems, and we give a score of 0, 1, 2, or 3 based on how much influence the one does on the other. So for example, water quality index and number 8 is health. So water quality index impacts health in a high amount. So we gave a score of 3. So these are the subsystems that make an influence, and these are the subsystems that get influenced by. Not getting into detail, but what is important is here is to note the active and passive sums. And that I represent in this graph. So we plotted the graph of active and passive sums. And the thing to note is that the higher the active sum, that means that subsystem gives impacts the other subsystems in a higher way. So urbanization has a higher impact on other systems. Real estate development similarly has a higher impact. And the passive sum, which is lighter orange, means that the system is getting impacted by. So groundwater level, agriculture produce, health, all these are systems that are more impacted by other subsystems. And based on that, we can kind of make we can make a complex causal loop and simplify it later on based on what are the heavier relationships that we see. So what came out roughly in my causal loop was that, for example, urbanization impacts ponds water sources. Degree of association impacts ponds water sources in a uh, lesser manner than urbanization does. Water quality index impacts degree of association. Local hydrology is impacted by, and it impacts groundwater, and so on. So from here, I kind of summarized three recommendations. One was at policy scale, urban policy scale. It is important to look at green and blue infrastructure as well when we're kind of creating the policy, planning policies. Two was the at the peri-urban governance level. So because of urbanization happening at an in an abrupt way within the villages also, there is a peri-urban situation that kind of gets created, and there's sometimes no dialogue between the urban governing body and the rural governing body, and so the platform of governance and communication needs to be looked at. And the third was to look at individual ponds and look at their individual contexts and suggest localized technical solution based on that. So this was what I kind of came up through my toolkit of City Rehydrate. And I would like Hardi to continue with her work ahead.
Yeah, so as Ashani have suggested, like these 15 villages and the ponds have to provide a localized solution. So like here, there are 15 ponds having a different problems and different climate, different locations of them. So based on that, so it is important to notice that so one solution cannot fit for all the lakes. So for that, it is important to understand each and every village and the pond and context. And based on that, we can suggest a localized solution. So while designing and suggesting a solution for these villages and these lakes, we try to understand and keep in mind that the solution must be eco-friendly first of all, and other than that, it should be a sustainable and it is used for a long term impacts. Also, it should be a cost effective as the villages are growing at the stage. Also, we try to include the local ecology and the localized materials which is easily available in the area. Also, how the different villages dynamics and water usage of the different purposes. So based on that, we try to suggest a solution while suggesting a different solution for different villages. So now for the presentation, I have presenting a Budera village as in detail with the localized solution suggested for that particular lake. So next slide, please. Here in the image, you guys can see on the right side, so there are so much of farms, and on the left side, there is a village, and village downstream, we can see there is a main lake located. Right now, there is no another pond that is tagged as a wastewater pond, but in the future, historical changes have been changed. Next slide, please. So how the historical changes have been evolved into the water quality discharge from the village to the particular lake, and over the years, the quantity is such that so there is another pond come up which is called as a wastewater pond, and this wastewater pond is directly impacting the quality of sorry directly impacting the quality of a main lake and main lake ecosystem. So there is a need of intervention to survive the ecosystem of the lake. And here you can see the whole lake is eutrophied. So there is a urgency of the solution, a need of intervention. So next slide, please. Yeah. So basically, while we are designing and suggesting a solution for each and every village, we try to look at each and every village in a qualitative manner to understand that village dynamics. We talked with local sarpanch and local villagers who are living around the ponds. And also, we try to look at the technical aspects of the lakes, as Ashani have already mentioned. So each and every lake have a different problems. And I am here talking about Budera village. So in this village, there is a population of 5,000 and most of the people are doing the farming there. And those people are really in trouble because of their farmlands are located into the floodplains of Najagga Jheel. So due to that, the monsoon season is completely occupied with the water so their farms are occupied with completely flooded with the water. And also they can only take, because of that, they can only take only one crop at a season, whole season. And because of that, the community willingness of working on this pond are really high. Also, we try to look at not only this particular qualitative aspects of the of how the people are working in their villages or what are the problems, but also what are the sources of their domestic water use and what are the sources of their drinking water, or maybe where the drinking water is being used, how the solid waste disposal mechanism in the particular village. So those kind of dynamics we try to understand from the village conversations. And here, based on that, we find out the Budera village having a lake of approx 8 kilometer acre, which area have been covered by the water body. And also we try to look at, once we have the intervention, where we can look at. So that's the reason we try to look for the area around the water body, how it is available. So it's around of 1.5 acre, which is available in Budera village. So next slide, please. Similarly, while designing a technical solution for the particular lake, we try to look at the different factors, which are the like mainly water quality, village information, climate factors, and the groundwater information on the village, and also CPA government guidelines to design a particular solution. So while keeping all this in mind, we suggested a different solution for different villages. Here, this is the water quality results. So we take the samples for all the different 15 villages, lakes and lakes, and we studied the water quality of each and every pond. So what we found out is like, so each pond are like having a different kind of water quality, and to define that in a so all 15 lakes have been categorized into the 5 category that is a based on the water quality index and other indicators like encroachment around the lakes, boundaries constructions around the lake, natural flow obstruction, and also the solid waste dumping, eutrophication level. So these are the things we try to keep in mind while defining different lakes into the different category. So most of the lakes are falling into the marginal and poor category. And that's the sign where it shows that there is an urgent need of the intervention in this area. So to survive the ecosystem of the water body. And similarly, we for Budera Pond, next slide please. Next, so Budera Pond, we have suggested a main 3 solution for the sorry, for the lake quality improvement. So there is a French constructed wetland, which is a first intervention to treat a grey water coming from the village. And the aeration pond is the next solution. And the third thing is the deepening the original lake. So we try to use the natural gradient available in the topography of that surrounded by the lake, and we accordingly we try to deepen the lake, so that will not need an additional resources and energy and materials to come up. And the French vertical wetland and the aeration pond is like major treatment for the gray water coming into the system. So next slide, please. So French constructed wetland is basically a treatment where we use a plant and soil, sand and gravel bed, and in which
Able to click that.
In which so we used a plant called Phragmites australis, which is suitable for this particular climatic of the village area. And that so this plant root are uptaking the pollutants from the wastewater, and we try to treat a gray water by passing through roots of the root zone of the these plants. And then this this treated water go further down into the sand bed, and then going to the porous and gravels in the different size of gravels bed. And then the treated water taken out from the bottom and going to the next stage of the constructed wetland. So basically this constructed wetland is treating having a 2-stage, and there 90% of the treatment have been completed into the pollutants have been removed in the first stage, and other 8% have been removed from the second stage, and the rest of the 2% have been covered into the aeration pond. So in the first, French vertical wetland having a 2-stage, first stage having the 3 beds, which simultaneously treating the water, and the second stage having the 2 beds, and then the treated water goes into the aeration pond. So while designing this particular French constructed wetland, we try to use as much as localized materials. So the particular village, Gurgaon district, is all located in the Aravalli ranges. So there it is easy to get sand and the rocks, gravels, whatever required for the construction. Also, the PVC pipes and the screen mesh is also a easy available material in that area. So that is the reason which provides a easy available material, which is low cost. Also, the local climatic condition have suggested which plants will be best suitable for the area. So that is the Phragmites australis, which is suitable for that particular area, and which is also help not limit to the removing the pollutants, but also it provide the opportunity to for the livelihood option for the community. So coming to the next slide. So community involvement is basically where this nature-based solution is providing a main impact on the community, because nature-based solution is not a complex and need a technical aspect learnings and for the maintaining and governing the particular treatment system, as the local people can also be a part of it and the maintain the their waste water and into the better quality. And also this constructed wetland is like having adding the value to the economic value to the land, because it's not like foul smells and mosquitoes and the other ugly side effects of the wastewater treatment plants, conventional treatment plants having. So that is the one thing. And also it provides a additional livelihood option with the after once the complete plant growth cycle have been completed, so that pollutant observed plants can be cut out and the dry, and that can be used for the paper making, brooms making, and also a different craft options, which is easily give livelihood to the local villagers. And also it connects aesthetic value to the lake. So this is where the community try to involve. So what after the treatment, we have to monitor the lake water quality. And here the water quality calculator as a decision making tool will be come into the picture, where the different water quality samples have been taken for the monitoring how the solution have been different lake and the different intervention is working. So once the water quality results feeded into the calculator, that gives a result how the quality of the lake is have been maintaining, and that will provide the decision making tool for the local government or maybe the district governing bodies, how they have to take a need of intervention or not. And the next slide, please. So overall, this is a zoomed in version of the localized solution, where we have also observed the like zoomed out picture of the Gurgaon districts, where all 15 villages are located. So here in the images, you can see how from year 2000 to 2019, the red color patches have been increased. So that is a that is a representing a built-up area. So the haphazard and unplanned urbanization is coming in overall district. That is a major activities, urbanization activities affecting these lakes and water bodies. And this is what Ashani have also recommended in her thesis part. So there is a need of policy level understanding how the urban planning can be understand the what will be the mechanism for the grey water discharge, what will be the mechanism for the solid waste dumping, and how the different aspects. So this is not the urbanization is not for the particular this Gurgaon district, but it is also a problem for all the major Indian cities like Madurai, Bangalore, also some of the South Gujarat cities like Anand and other cities in the India. So we should also consider in the planning while designing the blue and green spaces of the particular urban area. So next slide, please. So to conclude today's talk, Ashani and I have presented our different approaches for the same project, and these projects are just this is the just a 2 group member work, but also we are the 4 people like Ashani as an architect and having a background, Vinny is having a background of social worker, or I am as an engineer, and environment engineer, or Nitish as a civil engineer. So everybody having a different kind of disciplinary, and there we have tried to look at the different lenses of the same project, where Vinny have me and Ashani have tried to look at the presented view, where the Vinny have tried to look at the ecology and ecological aspects of the flora and fauna, how the climatic factors will be there, and what are the soil type, what are the condition for flora and fauna suitable for this particular Gurgaon district. And based on that, we can select a different nature-based treatment for the different project, different lakes, and for different or similar condition of the district. Also, where the Nitish have tried to look at the zoomed out version of the particular project, where he tried to look at the soil and water assessment of the whole Gurgaon and district, where he tried to look at how the hydrological aspects and drainage pattern are being playing a role in the whole district. So although these are the different projects and different objectives, but each of the project each of the person we are as a part of the group, we have learned that in the process of different individual projects, that these are the one's results of one project results fitting into the another, and each other's work complement each other. So that's the where interdisciplinary approach comes into the picture, while addressing similar projects like similar water projects which are currently going on in the country. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ashani and Hardi. Um, Ashani, can you turn off? So I'll just request everyone to switch on their videos so we can just, open out the discussion, and whoever has questions, you can just like type in the chat box. You can either type a question in the chat box, or rather you can just type that you have a question or raise your hand and I can unmute you, and you can just ask your question to Ishani and Hardi. We want to have like an informal discussion here, so just be open. Since you guys ended on the note of interdisciplinary, on this interdisciplinary approach, I thought like it'd be interesting to really ask what each of you individually, like for example, Hardi. It was also interesting for us to have, Aishani, who's an architect and now researching, and Hardi, who's an engineer, to come together and present. So, Hardi, if you could like just explain what you really learned from personally from being in this process of interdisciplinary of an interdisciplinary team, and what maybe Ashani would have learned personally being an engineer and an architect, and then we can just open out for more questions.
Yeah. So basically, as an engineer, we have always think of the seeing the water quality of the particular water body, or maybe the different giving a technological solution for them. But always the conventional treatment requires so much of energy, so much of technical learning and maintenance and governance of that particular plants. So while suggesting this solution, we never thought of the community and the as an engineer, I have tried to look at here in this process. I have learned that it is important to understand the village dynamics, who will maintain this particular solution. Once it is not important to just suggest a solution, and that's where the engineer's role ends. So we have to also think at who will maintain, who will govern this particular solution, and how it will go on a long-term run. So that is important factor to understand the give a association and ownership to the lake. So where the villagers have the ownership, they can the local people can easily maintain and having a having a livelihood option with the lakes treatment. So they can easily treat their waste and also maintaining their whole area as a clean. So this is what my learning is.
Yeah, I think complementing to what Hardi has said, as architects, I think we've been trained to kind of observe more on site, kind of note activities that happen around site, get a sense of what the context is, helps us in designing better, contextualizing our design better. So that has been there for me. But what I could really learn from Hardi was how to understand, let's say, water quality parameters. What does a particular value of BOD mean? And what does that mean in terms of how, for example, BOD means that the water quality does not have enough oxygen for aquatic life to survive. So the different ranges of different water quality parameters, all that kind of technical understanding, we were able to discuss as a team and kind of conclude and make those intuitive observations that we make on site a little more stronger and based on actual water quality or soil quality tests that we do. So that kind of discussions within the team we could have. So our understanding of the site and context kind of becomes better when we're able to have these discussions. Yeah.
Right. That's interesting. So do we have any questions? Any other questions from the audience, or anything that you want to like maybe share based on other studies on water bodies or any other observations?
I wanted to ask something. Basically, I wanted to know more, if you could throw some more light on the social perspective of looking at the whole project. If, like, how are people included in the process of this research, as well as how later when you hand over a certain project to them, is there a certain framework or a structure that is given to them as to how to maintain these things and how to engage more uh, with the final output of the project?
So just to give a little background of what this project, how it started. So luckily for us, the Gurgaon district governing body was very active, and the district collector had a we had that political will, that kind of support, and they have created like a society called Gurujal, and through that our college was we kind of got an opportunity through the college to be a part of this project. So if I had to imagine in this situation, it would be quite easy because there is already that hierarchy kind of set, a specific society set. And the team that the district collector had also had interdisciplinary uh, uh, em- uh, team members. They had architects, they had engineers, and they're kind of now expanding the team. And so in this context, I wouldn't imagine it to be very difficult. Their approach was also community oriented. They would have workshops with the panchayat and the villagers. In that sense, it was smooth. But to conduct a project at a huge scale, a certain political will is required. But maybe to start at a single point, at a single location, one can organically gauge what is the situation, talk to people, kind of organically understand what are the social dynamics, and go on from there, I think.
So if I could ask, if you could give an example of what kind of workshops are conducted, or like what are the specific ways in which people can be engaged in the process? I mean, I'm not sure if you did that in your project, but if in general, if you could share something like that.
So we did not do that in our project, but the organization, the society that they set up, they used social media, and they targeted kind of the urban population. They did these uh, uh, rainwater collecting drives and awareness campaigns, and they invited people to say, Acha, they would ask, if does your colony want a rainwater harvesting system? And so they set up telephone call numbers. So good thing was they had a technical team who could answer these questions, who could set these things up as and when the requests came. So the urban kind of side, they put in a little bit of marketing kind of approach to invite these projects.
Adding to the Ashani's point, so for like as the individual projects where the maybe many times a government does not have a willingness, or maybe as an individual or as a freelancer we are working in the particular area, so we can take a help of NGO, and also like going one by one in the community, and try to set different stakeholders to come up at a one table, and then we can just create a dialogue. If what will be, so maybe taking like the same project as a example. So there is a lake. So what the villagers would like to do with this lake, what the government would like to do with this lake, how the upcoming urban or real estate developers have the plan for the discharging wastewater. So those kind of dialogues we have to should be a one person who initiate this process. So there is an important role of the mediator as a water practitioner, I feel.
Yeah, correct. I mean, yeah, like what you mentioned is very important. Actually, the question that Kishan raised is also important, something we're facing in compartment as we're trying to like fetch and understand the role of the government in different urban projects. Uh, so here, actually, we've got a question from Nishita. Nishita, do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for a very nice presentation. I actually wanted to know that I have two questions. One is when you say wetlands, so how, because I have observed that the lakes in such places like rural areas or areas which are not accessible, there are presence of many small lakes, right? Then how do you negotiate the space factor for wetlands? And if the lake is only very small, and is there any another way to treat water coming to that, and if not wetland, because wetlands will require some area for in the site, right? And the second question is, when you start assessing the lakes in a place, then you obviously assess the whole network, right? And I've seen that most of the places, the lakes are interconnected to each other. Like the overflow from one lake goes to another lake, like how we've seen in Bangalore. Then I would like to know that at what scale do you start responding to these? Do you respond to the network of lake? Do you respond to the connectors which are connecting two lakes? Or do you respond at the lake scale? Or do you respond at a very smaller scale of just the periphery of the lake? Like how do you suggest, when we are looking at giving solutions, at what scale do you need to respond? Because responding at one scale, like a smaller scale, is not going to change the overall your overall landscape of water and watershed area.
Yeah. Absolutely important question you have asked. So this question, initially I have the same question while I was working on the same project. So this is the wetland is required so much of space. So here we have the space, so that we have suggested a constructed wetland in terms of trench vertical wetland. But the horizontal wetland have consumed much more area than the trench vertical wetland. So in that case, we require much more land and much more area in that particular area. But while giving to the solution with the different location and the different aspects, so like if we have the space constraint, we can go further for the drain kind of constraint, like bio walls or those kind of nature based solutions we can use. So in one of our project, while I was a part of ICRISAT, so there is a, like, you will like really surprised to know there is a constructed wetland which is like a 1-person bed size of, like 1-person bed size, almost 2.5 feet drain is going there, and that having the whole batch of like different sets of floating wetlands and the flora and fauna, and that treating the wastewater in batches, and then it goes to the farmlands. So interestingly, they have modified the solution accordingly the available space. Also in a different area, like answering to your second question. So if there is a connection between the lakes, and most of the time, so in South India, so me and Ashani was a part of one of the designing camp. There we have seen there is a Vandu tank, which is very well famous in Madurai. So that tank is a major network, having upper tanks in the upstream of the area. So that time it is important to understand the network as well as looking at the particular solution. So let's start for the stepping to first step. We have to look for the upstream kind of area where the actual pollution or maybe the problem starting. not look at the like overall the problem. So there is a, if we can see the Vandur lake is completely polluted, we cannot just remove the water hyacinth from Vandur as a one day. We have to look for the where the actual root cause of the like the pollution coming into that lake. So if the hospital waste is coming into the lake tank, or maybe the upper tanks are already polluted and that sourcing into the next tank. So that time we have to accordingly, based on the network problems and the like starting point of the problems, we have to look for the each and every step by step. We cannot treat whole network, or maybe as economically or financially it's not we can work on the all tanks. So for that, I think it is good to start from the smaller point, but the important link, which is starting point of the point, pollution, or maybe where the like water quality start degrading. So hope I have answered your question.
Yeah, very well. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So we got one question related to participation. I think it's by Purvi. Purvi, you want to just unmute and ask the question yourself?
The question was regarding what was the format of interrogation, be it like end user or with Gurujal or commissioner, like what was the point of contact every time when you interacted with the community, like how it changed from with end user, from commissioner, and what were the struggles that you faced, and what was the nature would be changing, right? If you're talking to community, and if you're talking to commissioner, if you're talking to Gurujal in itself, the community. So how was it like?
One contact point to enter the village were the Sarpanch, and we would speak to them to kind of get an idea of the village context, what kind of population, area, livelihood options, all of that we would kind of in a semi-structured format we would try to know from the Sarpanch. And then we would specifically want to talk to people who are one, adjacent to the pond, or being affected by the pond, be it farmers who are adjacent to the pond, or who are the villagers adjacent to the pond. So we would, after speaking to maybe the Sarpanch, we would kind of just go around, just see if there are people there, we'd kind of want to talk to them, ask permission, and just, so that was like a more informal format. We didn't get a chance to interact with the district collector, but our other team was in contact with the Gurujal of like the society, and they would often interact and make presentations to them. They would so they had a different project going on, but their interaction was a little more formal, discussing, presenting what they saw, what they observed, presenting what they kind of propose for as solutions. So that was a little more like a formal kind of structure.
So I also wanted to ask, like, was it just like interview kind of a format, or did they do any diagram, or did they share photographs, like this is how the situation was in the past? This, like, what was the nature of?
Yeah, it was just conversational in nature. We didn't get a lot of chance to, I think, get more in depth in that way.
But I would like to add here. So later on, we try to put these things, whatever we have observed and see, so put into the resource map and everything. And that time we like whatever the results we got, or maybe the another team which is also working on a similar project. So those that have been shown to the district collectors and their team. So while seeing the results, first of all, like you, the whole team is really upset with us because of like having so much of negative review getting from the people. So what people thinking about that local water bodies and how the things are. And then like seeing the later results and the one by one how the project progress, they are also like thinking on the similar way how we think. So that's the initial challenge that other team have been faced. We are not in the direct contact with the district collector, but the other team have presented and they have to face this issue. While with the villagers, so like many times the sarpanch do not want to like work on this particular lake or
give
maybe
the exact picture of what is going on.
Yeah, so then he just do not pick the call and do not come although he's there, but he will not show, and he's not there, he's absent, so you guys can carry on whatever you want to do. Something like that we have faced.
Also, when you came with the design solution, as you mentioned that you discussed with the collector itself, but was that discussed with the end user, like whoever the villagers would be? Like, was the collector one first to see that presentation, or villagers were the first to see that presentation?
So it's not like a design solution we have presented to the villagers and it have not been discussed. But yeah, while we are going for the visits and talking to the villagers, they always ask, what will be the solution you guys will give, and how it will be solved, when will be solved. So those curiosity will always there. And that time we do not have authorship or like authority to say that we will do that, we will do that. But we always give a hope that this kind of possibilities will be there. Yeah, this is a really challenging factor we have to address.
Yeah, I mean the tricky part is always how do you um, convince the authorities or whoever is the local body in charge to really put trust in your project. Um, but yeah, so I think we don't have any more questions. But
I just wanted to add. I just it's not directly related to the presentation, but so Hardi and Eshani, I just wanted to know. So, what would be like the next step for you guys? I mean, from what I know, both of you are also now sort of based in and around Ahmedabad or Gujarat, and is there something that you are planning for, like a research or something that you're planning for, around Ahmedabad, something like that?
Actually, Hardi had an idea of, so she showed that water quality calculator, and she had an idea of doing something like that for ponds around Ahmedabad. And so one was to actually get a sense of what is the current status. So that would kind of be the part of the, like, just the initial basic ground study, and use that calculator and then kind of see where it goes, what needs to be done. And yeah, Hardi can kind of maybe to talk a little.
So that water quality calculator was the required so much of technical aspects of like a language and computer languages
coding
and other things,
stuff.
Coding and all. So that part I have to leave at in the middle. But if I will be planning if somebody having a good hands-on on the water quality, the computer coding, and me and Eshani is having already interdisciplinary aspects, so that we guys can carry on with the making more thorough with this calculator and monitoring strategy for the maybe government or other practitioners.
Yeah, it'll be quite interesting to use this as a plugin to practices. So let's say if you guys act as a plugin to existing practices who might be intervening in areas like this. So your toolkit and your calculator becomes a plugin to the process, And the social aspect could also become something that either is a plugin, or depending on the kind of practice, the social aspect can be taken upon by the practice itself. And yeah, I mean, I see a lot of potential of it, being as something that comes as a plugin to multiple projects. Because as we are growing also in practice, we're more realizing, like how you also talked about how the importance of interdisciplinary practices, and the architecture as a field itself is becoming so interdisciplinary within itself. So at a lot of the complexities that we are facing on ground, not all of us, not all architects are also trained to take that up. So I really see this as a interesting potential to sort of act as a plug-in to multiple, even for governments. If this becomes a plugin that the government pitches to the, it comes from the government, or that could also be a solution. I'm just throwing ideas.
Right. And just to add to that, so the toolkit is like a work in progress, and at this point, this is the stage it has reached. And if anybody wants to kind of use it, try it out, please reach out, and I would welcome feedback, because I know how it works and what are its limitations at this point. So I would love to discuss if you want to use it and try it out.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a good note to end on, actually. So we've got like a bunch of architects, designers over here, and many of us have been like, we might have encountered certain projects related to water, and understanding the context generally means like a very small, just the site. But the toolkit, as Aishani explained, it sort of expands beyond the context to like look at more parameters in an the urban scale. So I think it's a good opportunity. We'll definitely, as Compartment Expo, we are definitely going to use one Aishani's toolkit in some project, as and when we get a chance. Yeah, this is great. Thanks for the presentation, Aishani and Hardi, and for the time. Hardi has really been kind to us by giving us the presentation in spite of being unwell. But yes, looking forward to catching up soon. And thank you everyone for being a part of the FMC today. We look forward to having all of you for the next few, which are going to be coming up soon.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for attending and for having us today.
Thank you.
And thank you, Compartment Expo, for giving us opportunity to share our knowledge.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.